Grand Admiral Vexer stood frozen before the holographic display. His four eyes blinked repeatedly, as if trying to clear away what he was seeing. The blue dots representing his invasion fleet were disappearing one by one. 12,000 ships. The largest fleet the Dominion Empire had ever assembled. And they were dying faster than his mind could process. What is happening? His voice came out as a whisper. No one in the command center answered him. They were all watching the same nightmare unfold. The Dominion Empire had ruled this galaxy for 9,000 years. They had conquered 412 species. They had crushed rebellions, absorbed civilizations, and built an empire that stretched across countless star systems. No one challenged them. No one dared. Their military power was absolute, their technology supreme, and their rule unquestioned. Until today. 3 hours ago, Vexer had ordered his fleet to invade a small planet on the outer edge of the galaxy. Intelligence reports had identified it as the homeworld of a primitive species that had just discovered space travel. The humans, they called themselves. Simple creatures with soft bodies and short lifespans. They had barely explored their own solar system. They posed no threat whatsoever. The invasion was supposed to be a simple operation. Arrive, destroy any resistance, enslave the population, move on to the next conquest. Standard procedure. Vexer had done it hundreds of times before. But something had gone terribly wrong. His fleet had dropped out of hyperspace near the planet called Earth. Standard formation. Standard protocols. Everything by the book. Then the sensors detected something strange. A single ship emerging from behind their moon. Just one ship. Vexer remembered laughing when he first saw it on the display. The ship was tiny compared to his massive warships. It looked crude and primitive. No energy shields that his sensors could detect. No obvious weapon systems. Just a small metal vessel with a strange design he had never seen before. He had ordered his fleet to ignore it and proceed with the invasion. A single primitive ship was not worth the ammunition it would take to destroy it. That decision would haunt him for the rest of his life. The strange ship had moved toward his fleet with impossible speed. His sensors could barely track it. One moment it was near the moon. The next moment it was in the middle of his formation. His tactical officers had started shouting warnings and alerts. Something was wrong with their instruments. They were detecting energy readings that made no sense. Then the killing began. The first battleship exploded without warning. No visible weapon, no energy beam, no missile impact. It simply tore apart from the inside out, as if something had reached into its core and ripped it open. Before anyone could react, 3 more ships died in the same impossible way. Vexer had screamed orders to open fire. 10,000 ships turned their weapons on a small vessel and unleashed everything they had. Plasma beams, nuclear missiles, gravity bombs. The combined firepower could have cracked a planet in half. None of it connected. The strange ship moved through the barrage like it did not exist. It twisted and turned in ways that violated every law of physics Vexer knew. It was everywhere and nowhere at the same time. And while his fleet wasted ammunition on empty space, more ships kept dying. The destruction was systematic and precise. The strange ship seemed to know exactly where to strike for maximum damage. Command vessels went first, then the heavy battleships, then the carriers. It was dismantling his fleet piece by piece with surgical efficiency. Now, 3 hours later, Vexer watched as the last of his ships blinked out of existence. 12,000 vessels. Millions of soldiers. The pride of the Dominion Empire. Gone. All of them gone. And the strange ship sat motionless in the debris field, completely undamaged. "Get me the Emperor," Vexer said. His voice was hollow. Immediately, the communication link established within seconds. Emperor Zothran's ancient face appeared on the screen. His expression shifted from annoyance to confusion to horror as Vexer explained what had happened. "Impossible," the Emperor said. Our intelligence confirmed these humans were primitive. They have no technology capable of this. Our intelligence was wrong, Your Majesty. Very wrong. The Emperor was silent for a long moment. In 9,000 years of rule, the Dominion had never faced a threat like this. They had always been the hunters, never the prey. Their military superiority was the foundation of their entire civilization. What do we know about this ship? The Emperor finally asked. Vexer pulled up the sensor data. Almost nothing, Your Majesty. Our instruments could not properly analyze it. The energy signatures do not match anything in our database. The propulsion system appears to be based on principles we do not understand. The weapons, if that is what they are, leave no trace. Ships simply cease to exist when targeted. And the humans themselves? Have we made contact? They have not responded to any communication attempts. The ship just sits there, waiting. The Emperor leaned back in his throne. Vexer could see fear in his eyes, genuine fear. Something the Dominion had not felt in millennia. Recall all expansion fleets, the Emperor ordered. Every ship we have, fortify the core worlds. We need to understand what we are dealing with before we proceed. Your Majesty, if I may speak freely? Speak. I do not believe this was their only ship. A species capable of building something like that would not build just one. We may have awakened something we cannot stop. The Emperor nodded slowly. Then, we must prepare for the worst. Send diplomatic envoys. Find out what they want. Perhaps we can negotiate. Vexer almost laughed at the suggestion. The Dominion Empire did not negotiate. They conquered. They demanded. They took. But looking at the debris of his fleet floating in space, he realized those days might be over. Meanwhile, aboard the human vessel, Captain Sarah Chun reviewed the battle data with cold satisfaction. The experimental drive system had performed beyond expectations. The quantum displacement weapons had worked exactly as designed, and the adaptive camouflage had made their ship practically invisible to the alien sensors. She knew this was just the beginning. Humanity had been watching the Dominion Empire for 50 years. They had intercepted their communications, studied their technology, observed their brutal conquests, and they had prepared. The Dominion thought humans were primitive because that is what humanity wanted them to think. Every probe the aliens sent to Earth had been carefully manipulated. Every signal intercepted and altered. The humans had hidden their true capabilities while learning everything they could about their future enemy. The ship Sarah commanded was called the Prometheus. It was the first of a new class of vessels designed specifically to counter the Dominion threat. Faster than anything the aliens had. Armed with weapons they could not understand or defend against. Crewed by soldiers who had trained their entire lives for this moment. And there were more. Many more. Hidden in facilities across the solar system, waiting for the signal to launch. Sarah opened a communication channel to Earth. Phase 1 complete. The invasion fleet has been neutralized. Awaiting further orders. The response came from Admiral Marcus Webb at United Earth Command. Outstanding work, Captain. The Council has reviewed your data. They have authorized Phase 2. Understood, sir. What are our objectives? We are sending you coordinates for 3 Dominion military installations in nearby systems. Destroy them. Make sure there are survivors to report what happened. We want the Empire to understand that this was not an accident or a lucky shot. We want them afraid. Sarah smiled. With pleasure, Admiral. She closed the channel and turned to her crew. 12 officers from 12 different nations, unified under a single purpose. They had all lost someone to alien aggression. They all wanted justice. Set course for the first target, Sarah ordered. Maximum speed. The Prometheus vanished into the darkness of space, leaving only debris and terror in its wake. In the following weeks, panic spread through the Dominion Empire like wildfire. 3 military stations destroyed. 2 patrol fleets eliminated. A mining colony attacked. And always the same report from the few survivors. A single ship, unidentified, unstoppable. The Empire had never experienced fear like this. They had ruled through strength and intimidation for so long that they had forgotten what it felt like to be the weak ones. Now they remembered, and they hated it. Emperor Zothran called an emergency meeting of his war council. The greatest military minds in the Dominion gathered to discuss a single question. How do we stop the humans? No one had an answer. Their weapons were useless. Their ships were too slow. Their sensors could not track the enemy. Every advantage they had built over 9,000 years meant nothing against this strange new threat. Some advisors suggested surrender. Others recommended retreat to the core worlds and building defensive positions. A few foolish voices called for a massive counterattack against Earth. General Krevox, the oldest and most experienced commander in the Dominion military, silenced them all with a simple truth. We cannot fight what we do not understand. And we do not understand these humans at all. Every assumption we made about them was wrong. Every piece of intelligence was false. We walked into a trap that took decades to set. And what do you suggest? The Emperor demanded. Krevox looked directly at his ruler. We talk to them. We find out what they want. And we give it to them. Because the alternative is extinction. The room fell silent. The Dominion Empire, the greatest power this galaxy had ever known, was about to beg for mercy from a species they had planned to enslave. Back on Earth, the United Council watched the diplomatic channels carefully. They had intercepted the Dominion's internal communications. They knew the aliens were afraid. They knew they were preparing to negotiate. The council members debated what terms to demand. Freedom for all enslaved species. The return of conquered worlds. The dissolution of the Dominion military. Some wanted total destruction of the Empire. Others called for measured responses. In the end, they chose a middle path. The humans would not become what they had fought against. They would offer peace, but a peace with teeth. The Dominion would survive, but they would never threaten Earth or any free world again. When the Dominion envoy finally made contact, they expected to deal with primitive barbarians who had gotten lucky. Instead, they found themselves facing a calm, calculated opponent who knew exactly what they wanted and exactly how to get it. The negotiations lasted 3 months. The Dominion surrendered on almost every point. They had no choice. The alternative was watching the Prometheus and her sister ships tear apart everything they had built. On the day the treaty was signed, Captain Sarah Chan stood on the observation deck of her ship and watched the stars. Humanity had taken its first step onto the galactic stage. They had faced their greatest enemy and won. The future was uncertain, dangerous, and full of possibilities. But one thing was clear. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again.